So today I'm with David Rogers at the Rising Crane School Academy, Kwun, and we have had a very nice time doing a little bit of training, and this is the second conversation that we've had, so
That's right.
Go back and check out the first one for context if you need. But I'm very excited to be here. David is an expert in Kung Fu, Tai Chi Chuan, Southern Shaolin, Kung Fu Mok Hapgar, and has also trained many very successful martial artists, champions in all kinds of competitive fields. So MMA, Kung Fu, they've competed internationally as well, I think.
Yeah.
So he's a very seasoned practitioner, he's a very good coach, and he's also got an incredible Kwun and gym here. So lots of interesting things to talk about. So thank you very much
thank you.
for coming on the show. Yeah. So let us begin. Let us start. One of the things I was interested when I listened back to our first conversation that I think would be useful for people to know about is a little bit more about your background, because you've applied yourself over decades to build a Kung Fu school, to be a successful coach. But what was the background to that? Were you a disciplined kid? Were you trained how to be successful or something? Or was there something innate, which means once you grab onto something you just don't let go? Could you...
Partly that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Certainly there was no innate athleticism, I have to say that.
Okay.
I was a bookworm. I loved studying, reading, didn't like sports at all, so it's a bit strange. I suppose the pivotal moment was when I saw Enter the Dragon when I was about 13.
Okay.
And that was like, oh, I want to do something like that, which was out of character. But I tried various martial arts, and then when I was 14, I went to a Kung Fu class, and this is it. This is what I want to do. And then I become very probably OCD in a sense.
Right.
It's like just really obsessed with it, training every day. It was my escape. It was I always had, even as a small kid, a strong kind of imagination, and so I really got caught up in the whole culture of it.
So that, I think, if someone's watching and they are a bit scholarly, that's not something that should limit them if they're thinking about getting into martial arts or something. I mean, you're not like a natural born athlete. Right.
No, but if you're scholarly, do some sports science. Look at the sports science.
Right.
You can see how you can transform yourself. So I think it's much more understood. So you've got the traditional ways. Chinese martial art has a very step-by-step approach. Literally starting from standing still, learning how your posture works, to movement, to power generation, to application. So there's a step-by-step approach. So if you're kind of a scientific bent, I think that might appeal, because some kids just get it naturally. I mean, sure, some of us need a bit more of a structured approach to it.
So, again, I was thinking about this when I was listening back to our first conversation. Do you think did you have a kind of critical mindset before you came into martial arts?
Yeah.
You did, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what informed your progress through the martial arts, was kind of being analytical about it.
I was always analytical. Critical thinking, it come naturally to me, but I had great respect for people who had a more intuitive approach.
Right.
Even though I didn't share that, I kind of wanted to understand that. Hence I got interested in things like Chinese medicine and Qigong, even though my own kind of angle was more scientific.
Right.
I just really wanted to get a handle on that. It was like a puzzle. I really wanted to understand it.
So you kind of want to come out of your head more into your body, into a kind of tangible feeling.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a little bit of self-balancing in yourself.
I believe so, yeah.
Seemed to work quite well. So the background was more academic, and you decided to get into this martial arts. There is something that I notice a lot with successful martial artists, and that is the OCD thing. So, could you talk a little bit about that? What is it? And when we were talking earlier, you said it was difficult for you not to talk about martial arts.
There was a period of my life when I was very much one-track mind.
Right.
In my teenage years. I think it's probably true of anyone that takes up, musical instrument or something, wants to get to a very high standard. There's a point where you have to do a lot of practice, and most people don't want to go through that phase. So most people don't really reach the next stage. My Sifu used to say to me, if you want to be a Kung Fu master, you must be a bit crazy. Yeah. And then he'd look at me and go, but not too crazy. So there is a balance.
Yeah.
But a little bit. So, I mean, Chinese martial art is the epitome of OCD, isn't it? I mean, if someone spent 10 years practicing one palm strike, I mean, that's not normal human behaviour. There's something not quite healthy almost about that, even though it preaches health. Yeah. There is a danger that you can kind of go that way.
Yeah, and I have heard that, and I kind of felt that intuitively as well, because, these people that just stay with this thing doggedly, that's how I feel about Tai Chi Chuan. It will just be there, and I cannot ever, relinquish this kind of pursuit. That is a little bit out of balance.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to periodically step back and look at it in context and say, how does this thing that I'm studying fit into the bigger picture, whether it's the bigger picture of your own life balance or the society around you, what I'm actually doing. If you can have both, as long as you've got both of those views, I think you're safe.
You'll be all right.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, and I guess hopefully if you've got, particularly with Chinese martial arts, if you've got this concept always drumming away at the back of you, which is harmonise yourself, get balanced, don't be too soft, don't be too hard. Hopefully that's going to sink in.
It's the underlying philosophy of it all.
Yeah, with us eventually. Is the OCD thing that's something specific to you? Sorry, I'm not going to keep going on about this, but I do find it interesting. Is that in your family, or is it more? Or did you look and get that off someone?
No.
My dad was intense about work. He just couldn't stop working. I don't quite feel that way, but I do feel that way about martial arts. I'm not sure if it's inherited or not, but it's something personal to you.
My parents separated when I was quite young, so I didn't have a dad figure around for a while. So I guess the kind of the mentor figure, the Kung Fu master, was part of it. My mum, she was always supportive of my training. I mean, she'd drive me to classes before I was old enough to drive, and she was supportive, but she never quite got it. She thought it was a little strange, but she helped me out. But it wasn't a shared passion or mindset by any means.
Right.
She found me a bit strange.
And look at you now. We're all fine. Okay. Right. We'll get onto Kung Fu. We'll get a little bit more into Kung Fu. I know that you have a lot of opinions about Kung Fu and a lot of good, stuff that's impacted me since our last conversation. What I think it's fair to say that in the world of martial arts, Kung Fu is a little bit poo-pooed. It's kind of, people take a dump on it, pretty much.
Often for good reason.
What do you think could happen for Kung Fu to kind of claw its way back into a little bit of a more valued, respected kind of position?
I think, again, it was what I was saying before about context, not being too insular. How does it fit in with the society, with what's going on with the world now? There's a lot more sharing of information, a lot more opening up. Kung Fu traditionally is very secretive, very insular, and that's why it's held it back for a long time, compared to some of the other, like Korean, Japanese martial art, which are much more popular, much more successful. So I think that's one part of it. But if you look at the methods of Chinese martial art, there's a lot of stuff that even today, I think, even in modern mixed martial arts, they could take some of it. There's some really good concepts, and so mixed martial art started by learning all different things and putting them together. Chinese martial art evolved in a more integrated way, and then the things kind of split off from it. So it's almost sort of it's the sort of the I don't think how to say it now, but it's integrated from the beginning. So that philosophy is kind of unique in martial arts, and I think that's its strength.
Right. So its very first premise is that you're going to have to understand quite a lot of different things.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas most martial arts is, this is what you need, and please don't look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think so. Nowadays people want very quick results. That's another difference.
Yeah.
Chinese martial art, they'd spend time on preparing the body, so that you wouldn't get injured later on. There's a lot of work which nowadays they call prehab or whatever. So you're working the joints and mobility and so on and so forth. And it's not the most efficient way of learning to fight. So depending on what people are interested in, there's much quicker ways, much better ways in the short term. But I've been doing this 35 years, and I can still spar with the younger people, and obviously not competitively fight, but I'm saying that I can still move and do my kung fu because of the early training, which I think if people skip that and they do the MMA, they have a few fights and then they're battered and they're injured, and so there's a lot of stuff on the physical level they could learn. Also on the tactical level, which we were talking about before, there's some kind of tactics to Chinese martial art that you won't find in the individual martial arts like Muay Thai, wrestling or Jiu-Jitsu, because they come from a more insular development rather than a mix, rather than a cross. So I think there's some useful stuff in there.
There's a couple of points that kind of bubbled up as you were talking, and one of the things that I've noticed is that I've lived in Thailand. I've seen Muay Thai fighters. You don't see that many Muay Thai guys really moving very well past the age of 45.
Right.
It's very, very hard on them. And then I think kind of the same way about boxing. I mean, that takes a toll on your head.
Head trauma is not funny.
It's not a nice way to go. No. The only people that I see consistently living a long time and still doing their thing are in the Chinese.
Yep. We have lots of examples of really amazing old people in Chinese.
There's tons,
which is really inspiring.
There's tons. Your Sifu, for example, we were just talking about.
Yeah.
70.
He's about 75 now.
75. He's going down the park every day.
Yeah.
He's writing books, detailed books.
He studies.
I mean, he is a scholar warrior by any.
He's my inspiration as a scholar warrior.
Yeah.
He's always studying, always practicing, but he's always smiling.
Right.
He enjoys life.
Yeah.
And he loves talking with people and comparing techniques, and everything to him is fun.
Right. It almost feels like the Chinese martial arts are very much like kind of big picture. They're looking at, are you going to be able to defend yourself when you're 70, or are you going to be crippled?
Exactly.
Are you going to want to live when you're 75, or are you going to want to jump off a cliff?
That's a good point. I think that's exactly right.
However, we know that the application needs work.
For a long time, I mean, again, it was political in China that the application stuff was played down, and it was purely taught as a health exercise.
Right. And
so, therefore, when the fighting stuff first started to come back, ironically, the Western people were ahead of the Chinese in terms of fighting, which the Chinese didn't want to lose face, so they start making all kinds of excuses and politics to try. Really, the thing to do is just get in there. I mean, when I first switched from Chinese style competitions to MMA, the first time I knew we wouldn't win because it wasn't our environment, it wasn't our experience. I took a team of 7 fighters, and I think most of them lost on the first fight. It was an amateur. We knocked that. Okay, but we went away and we said, what do we have to work on? What do we have to improve? We now we understand. We went back the second time, 7 people, 6 wins.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's
a very quick turnaround.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself there. If you don't want to put yourself there, you won't know. You
have to be willing to lose face.
You have to be. And face is obviously in Chinese culture
pretty
massive,
big. The face is very.
I don't have a problem. Thing. I don't have a problem with failing as a strategy to a future success.
Right. And I mean, there's lots of quotes about that, but there's winning and then there's learning.
That's a great saying, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a very, very. It transforms your experience, doesn't it?
The Chinese philosophy is about you do not engage in a battle that you're not going to win. So you already stack it. So I know I'm going to win before I go into this. Now that's a great philosophy for war. Yeah. That's a great philosophy when you can't afford to lose.
Right.
So there's a time for that. It's like in a street situation, you have to be absolutely brutal and first, etc., etc. But if you're like that with your training partners and your sparring partners, you have no friends. You're going to get injured people.
Right.
So it's knowing. I think it's knowing when that mindset's appropriate. Yeah. Some people haven't got that and can never switch it on. That's a problem. Yeah. Some people are stuck in it. They become, psychotic, and they're in that mindset all the time.
So do you think obviously that is a very useful tactic, but if a lot of Chinese martial artists are operating from that playbook. They're shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, they're not going to evolve, not going to develop.
Right.
They got their secret techniques, which are great, often really good. But then 10 years later in MMA, everyone's done it, and then you'll say, "This is our technique," and they'll say, "Well, yeah, but we all do that now."
Right.
So it's not secret anymore. And if you brought it out, it would have evolved, and now you'd be onto the next stage.
Right.
So I don't think in this day and age there's any room for that kind of secrecy anymore. It just holds everyone back.
Right. That's very interesting.
Sharing is the way to go.
Sharing is the way to go. Making friends, not enemies.
I mean, that's the modern world we live in, and that's why we enjoy a much better standard of living. We can enjoy life more. We should be even better than the old masters.
Yeah.
We've got access to more information. We have better health. We have better nutrition. We have comforts. We should be living the best. Like, we should be like the happiest, most productive. I mean, in theory, but in practice, it's not like that. And I think it's because people are still stuck in that other mindset. So I think that's the most critical thing.
So share those secrets, get them out there, and then we can all benefit.
We can all benefit.
Well, it's interesting that we got there, because one of my next questions was, what is the right mindset for traditional artists to, improve the quality of their arts? But
so share information. Don't be afraid to test stuff. Don't be afraid that something's not going to work the first time, because then it will never work. You've got to be prepared to fail a bunch of times before you can figure it out.
Yeah.
But you need to create a culture and an environment where there's there's not too much of a, what's the word? If you fail, you're not going to get hurt.
Right.
Too badly.
Right.
Too badly.
Yeah. And that reminds me of another point that I remember you talking about in terms of MMA.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think if you're a traditional martial artist, you just cannot keep sticking your head in the sand when it comes to MMA. Now, many people, when they think of MMA, they think about brutality, and they think about someone full contact, pinning them to the ground and punching their face in.
Yeah.
But one of the great things I got from you was everything can be dialed down.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can still train well and dial everything down, and that still makes it very, very useful and realistic.
The reason that there's not a lot of, as you were saying, older Thai boxers in shape or older MMA guys in shape is simply too much intensity takes too much of a toll on the body. It's not something inherently about the style.
Yeah.
It's the training method and the intensity of the training method. A real fight is brutal. I mean, the old Kung Fu guys in my teacher's father's generation, they would test their Kung Fu just by fighting. They'd go out and get into fights.
Right.
We don't do that now, thankfully.
Yeah.
The nearest we can do is an MMA environment, and I think that's pretty close. There's a lot of skills going to transfer over. Yeah, you still have to train some of the kind of dirty tactics and the weapons, etc. But you're going to get most of it from stand-up clinch and ground fighting. Understanding that. It's not necessary, I was saying before about head trauma, it's not necessary to take a lot of head trauma to learn it, because if I can hold you down, put you in position, develop a posture where I can potentially strike from, and then just tap, and then you've got to figure out, tap, I can't just ignore this, I can't go into kind of grappling mode and start, 3 of those I'd be finished, so I have to react as if it were real. So watching, even if you're not interested in competing, which I'm not, I didn't actually do MMA because I was a fan of the sport. I started MMA to test our martial art, to keep it honest. It was that. So even if you're not a fan of the sport, which I get, watch the fights. Just even for a concept of like the time frame, and say, would my technique work in this kind of environment? We're lucky at our school because we can go downstairs and the Kung Fu guys can spar with the MMA team and kind of try this stuff out. But here's the fact: most of them don't, of course. Right. Most of them don't want to. They're not. Yeah. That's not what they're practicing for, and that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as that people have are not deceiving themselves. Oh, I'm a great fighter. Well, find out. You can find out, and it doesn't need to be full contact. You can have full resistance. Yeah. With a reduced level of contact. Yeah. So we're not getting hit in the head and battered.
Yeah. And one thing. By the way, I'm very much enjoying myself coming here today because I get to have a look around this Kwun, and it's a very cool place. And my wife and kids are here. I was walking around with my wife, and she was like, "You're in your dream right now," because I'm walking around. There's a cage, there's kettlebells, there's pull-up bars. Then we walk in, and there's an MMA gym, a fight, clearly a fighting area, and then you walk upstairs and it's like a whole atmosphere change. You can smell incense and you're in a traditional Chinese Kwoon, and I think it's really incredible the environment that you've created where you can. We walked into the Kwoon and it's like Fight Club downstairs, and you walk upstairs, and then you're very cultured, very.
It's exactly what I was going for.
Very civilized. Well, it's really because it's so clear, but it's very cool to have created that environment. I mean, and I think that obviously shows something about you in how you can create an environment. And I think it's so cool. It's just like a fancy for me to go and try. Go and train kung fu upstairs and then go downstairs and you can answer your questions.
Exactly.
You can go and fight with it.
It's the lab.
It's the lab.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool. So that was a segue, but the point is, if you want to come and do something cool like that, and you can come here, and come and meet David, and come to Rising Crane and do that thing. It's very cool, man. I'll be back for sure. So. Thinking about your coaching, and then we were talking before I got to film some of David's stuff, and you're a successful coach. And what is the most important quality for becoming a successful coach?
That your students are successful. So you have to put them first.
Right.
So I've never never had any particular ambitions to be a champion myself. Some coaches, who were champions, that's good experience. So the students sometimes have a lot of respect because they've, been there and done that kind of thing. But for me, it was more about how can I get the students up to this level. So how can I create the classes, the curriculum, the environment, the culture where people can get up to their potential, and have fun, not get injured, but still have some skills. So coaching skills and fighting skills are not the same same thing.
And I think if people cast their minds back, they, to teachers they've had, being competent at something doesn't make you a good teacher.
I've had seminars with really top guys, and some of them can't teach at all. Some of them are so, maybe because they're so natural and it's so intuitive to them that they can't actually articulate. And if they've got someone with a problem, they can't reverse engineer it and say, okay, try this, try that. I mean, there are some. I did a seminar with Dan Hardy, and he's very, very good coach.
Yeah,
he's very good. So there are kind of exceptions.
Right.
But sometimes people can be great fighters. And not good coaches. Some of the best coaches, Greg Jackson was never a professional fighter, and he's got more UFC champions than anyone. My jiu-jitsu coach Braulio was a very good coach and a champion. So you can have both, but you can also have one without the other. They're different skill sets, and they have to be approached differently and trained differently. Right.
So if you find a guy that's a world champion and a great teacher, that's a bit of a unicorn. That's not.
Yeah, it's unusual.
It's unusual.
But it's more important. It's not so important how good your teacher is, it's how good he can make you and how you feel. A classic example, Tyson and Customata.
Yeah, Customata, yeah.
He would never have been where he was if you hadn't been with him. But there was no point at which you could say, D'Amato would have beaten him in a fight or something like that.
Right.
So you have to understand there's coaching and then there's fighting.
And and that was quite similar to the kind of Sifu relationship, because he really took him in like a son.
Yeah.
And if you hear like Tyson talk about him, he tears up.
That was a special relationship. That was more like a Sifu.
Yeah.
But that's not, before people kind of get the wrong idea. Here in this centre, we're a modern gym. People come and they train and they have classes, and I don't have that expectation.
Right.
I think you can have. It's different if you adopt someone, you take them in, like the old Sifu relationship. This is a person you could phone them at 3 a.m. and say, there's a hole in my roof, come and fix it, and they'd be there. Yeah. That was one kind of relationship. But now it's a relationship of people pay membership, it's a business. My job is to provide the best environment, the best coaching, the best curriculum, and to keep it professional. Of course, we have more sort of inner students that have been with me a long time, but that's a different thing, and it's not, most people they don't want to go there, which is fine, and I think that's appropriate, because this isn't China.
Yeah, it's not China, and that itself brings quite a few issues with the culture, because how in China it's very much like Sifu. you do your 3 years, you kowtow, you bow to them and you make them tea, and
Sure.
And then that comes over to the West, and that's sometimes difficult to navigate.
You have to ask the why, isn't it? Why would someone of a Western background, why would I want that kind of environment? It's an interesting question. Why would someone want people to treat them in that way in this culture that we're in now? I think it's a strange, to me, it belongs in the past, or in its own, in China's different.
In its own context.
Because it's in its own context. Here, it would I think it would be inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, if we talk about the effective coach, it seemed like you were angling at thinking about them before you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I might have my own preferences, but it might not suit them, either their physicality or their mentality. And you have to be able to see them and then say, okay, this may suit this person or that person. And the other thing as a coach is you have to be able to break down the technique into what's the important things. How much of it is you can't change, because if you change it you spoil the technique, and how much of it is just my own personal preference or my own personal bias. And so by being a little less, giving a little less sometimes detail in certain areas and encouraging them to figure some of it out by themselves, then they will come up with a way that suits them.
Right. I think one of the things I really enjoy about your style is the scientific method, and I think it may have been intuitive or from the scholarly kind of book reading years, but it seems, kind of the product of Western culture is a scientific method, really. But how would you suggest people apply that in their own lives, or how would they begin to use this method, which has clearly produced quite good, great results? So this scientific method of testing things out.
Yeah.
Can you summarize that method? How do people start using it?
I'll quote somebody who was an influence on my thinking, Burton Richardson, and he said, if you want your martial art, if your martial art is not functional, and your martial art is the basis of your life, then your life is not going to be functional. Right,
that's a great metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think he said it better than me on that one.
Right.
You can the principles. So by testing your martial art and finding what principles work under pressure, they're going to be the ones that in your life, when pressure comes and things happen, they're going to stick with you and they're still going to work. As they say, it's easy to be a sage on a mountaintop, but when you go to the marketplace, it's a whole different thing. Likewise, it's easy to do a nice form when there's no one trying to punch you in the face and so on. Some people say, we don't like even in the Tai Chi, just the push hands, just the fact that there's somebody there, just the fact that you're actually having to not be just dealing with your own stuff, but feeling something out is a relationship. Yeah. I'm either butting against it or I'm intelligently dealing with it. Right. And I think that's so valuable. So even people who are not interested in fighting should do something of a more of a freestyle practice, so that they understand how the principles manifested spontaneously. That I think is really important.
That's great advice, and that's an interesting quote, isn't it? I wonder if it works with art in general. So if you're making music and no one wants to listen to it, maybe you should reconsider. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it applies. I'll have to test that idea out.
You have to take ownership. It's like when you run a school. If you're running a class and people aren't coming or they're not coming back, it's you. Yeah, it's you. Yeah. So say, the kids these days have got no discipline, or nobody wants to learn this system. It's you. People still want to learn stuff. You have to put it in a way that it's valuable to them and give them something, and you have to start by taking responsibility. Otherwise you
take some damn responsibility and see if this stuff works.
Exactly.
When we last spoke, you said something about cultural assumptions. Okay. And as you said it, something about it, like kind of, it punched me in the mind. I was like, this is something. This is a very interesting point to think about. And it was cultural assumptions, and it was in the context of martial arts. So, for example, you're in Thailand and you're doing Muay Thai. The cultural assumption that you would take someone to the ground and then beat them up or choke them out would be poo-pooed. That would be like, no, that's
class,
not
low
the
class.
no, that's not right. You go to Brazil, they're rolling on the floor, they're doing jiu-jitsu. Oh, that's the gentleman's art.
Correct.
You want to stand up and kick people in the head.
Yeah.
And I found that fascinating.
And in China, they'd have no problem kicking people in the groin, by the way.
Right.
Which is really dirty fighting, even in MMA.
Right.
Kind of culture,
That's expected. Expect to get kicked in the balls.
It's the one place you don't want to get kicked.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a fascinating concept, because it leads you to think about how many things are you doing that are a cultural assumption, and there's a lot of things in any culture. I mean, an obvious example is, like, I remember when I was about to get married, and I'd sit down and I'd be in a pub or something talking to someone. They're like, "It's over for you now, mate. Ball and chain." And I was thinking, that's really interesting, because I don't think that at all. I actually think this is going to be a fantastic thing. Then I'd see them a year later, and they're like, "What did I tell you about getting married? Ball and chain." I was like, "No, actually, it's actually better than it was a year before." So we've got all these cultural assumptions. How do you know if you've got a cultural assumption?
Visit another culture would be a good start. So travel.
Right.
I think it's really hard to find people that have really broke free of their own culture, and the ones that have, maybe, is by seeing different things, because it will just make you question what you think you know.
I didn't expect such a simple and effective answer. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've experienced that myself, and it's one of the best ways to go and learn. So go and see another culture.
So you could list the things that you think, right, these are the things I know are true, and then can you find the exceptions?
Yeah.
Can you find people that have achieved something despite not following that path?
Right.
Look at UFC 1. I mean, nobody knew what jiu-jitsu was, right? So there was a cultural assumption that the fight's over when it hits the ground, and along come these people that had a different assumption and beat everybody.
Right.
And now people have absorbed that.
Yeah.
There's a whole area here we didn't know about. So, and that's grown. So we've all learned from that. So it's a good thing. But yeah, we didn't realise the hole in the game, so to speak.
And some other group of people were operating from a completely different...
It's not finished yet. I think there's going to be more things coming up.
Yeah. So what do you think is, in terms of MMA?
For example.
Okay. And anything else?
Well, all of culture, because it used to be, even say universities, you'd have physics, you'd have biology, you'd have chemistry. These were very diverse things.
Yeah.
Now you've got biochemistry. Now you've got, so as the things evolve and overlap, and the cool stuff happens in the overlaps. Right. Because you have, we have this approach with this assumption, they have this approach with this assumption. Now you're getting somewhere. Now we need to rethink this. Right. There's things going on here. It's because it's the it's the old platypus thing again, isn't it? Where you have you define what is a mammal. Yeah. Okay. And then you define what is a bird. Right. And then someone finds this creature, and it's like, wait a minute. It lays eggs. Is it a bird? It lays eggs, and it suckles its young, and it's like a great puzzle to science. The reason it's a puzzle to science is because they discovered it after they made the categories. Right. There's nothing inherently weird about it. It's the assumption that it shouldn't be like that. Right. It's the preconception. Right. If you lived in a country, if science was developed in the country where that was a native creature, then that would have never been this paradox. Right. It's the paradox comes from your own assumption. Right. Oh, this is some good stuff. This is some deep stuff. Where else do you think? I mean, that you're going to get that stuff. So this is like big. This is looking at the big picture. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, obviously in martial art, we can look at it in terms of the intersection of striking and grappling, stand up and ground, wrestling. Can we? Muay Thai have a clinch with striking, wrestling have a clinch with takedowns. Where's the intersection? What's going on there? That's interesting to me. But yeah, big picture. I mean, just how many people now are sharing knowledge in all fields on the internet, on YouTube, and people learning from each other. It's a cool time to be around, to have a business. You can learn from different things. There's so much out there. I agree. I think I think this is the best time to be alive ever.
I mean, it's not hard if you look back.
Totally.
I mean,
they would have lived a horrible life by our standards not very long ago.
Yeah.
We should. Why isn't everyone just
Celebrating
simplified up and training and just enjoying life? What?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
How do people somehow find a way to be miserable despite all of this? People say, "Oh, well, it's easy for you. You've got this. You've got that." No, when I come back from China, I had about £30 in my pocket. That's all I had. And I said, okay, I'm going to put an advert in the newspaper, and it was like, who wants to learn Kung Fu? I mean, that was okay. So I had a couple of students from that. And then, you were all free to do stuff, to learn. And now with the internet, you can't maybe get a degree from Harvard with the certificate and everything, but you can watch the lectures.
That is amazing.
You can have the knowledge, the same knowledge that those guys have got. There's no reason not to educate yourself and to learn stuff.
Yeah, I'm often struck by if you look at the internet and what people are spending their time on. do you know what I mean?
Totally.
I'm watching lectures at least 50% of the time. I'm watching lectures.
Yeah.
It's all there, and you don't have to pay for it, like you say.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think why are people? Why do they choose to just spend most of it on? I don't want to be judging, but it's inane drivel and the odd cat video maybe, but why do people want to spend their lives in that kind of environment? It's there if you want it. You make the choice. I mean, just like eating, you can choose between junk or healthy food. Same with what you put in your mind. You can choose between junk and healthy stuff, and the junk in the long run, may give you that quick hit, but it's not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you content.
Very good metaphor on what you're consuming, because oftentimes you don't think that you're consuming it. You're putting it up and it's there. It's there on your phone or it's there on your laptop, but you are consuming it.
You're consuming. So part of it, I suppose, growing up, and they talk about kids and have you read like the marshmallow test and that kind of thing? Kids that can defer gratification tend to do that.
Right, the long term. Long term thinking kids.
So that's true, but some has gone the other way. Now life is deferred gratification to the point where you get to the end of it and you've deferred the whole thing all the way along. So where's the line to say, right, it's one extreme is to say, I'm just going to live hedonistic and I'll enjoy drinking and eating and doing everything, and sure, and then you make yourself, in the long run, you make yourself miserable. Or the other one is where you're so kind of focused and become a workaholic, or everything's about the next thing, and you forget to stop and smell the roses. So I think Kung Fu for me is a kind of sweet spot.
Harmonise. It's continually reminding you to balance and check yourself, and
being in the moment, but at the same time having a sense of where that fits in the longer term.
Couple of questions I'd like to ask you, more about life, and I think one of the big ones, and like I said before we were on camera, what I think is really inspiring when I meet you, and I am very inspired, is that this dream of living martial arts and actually making it into a good business and is fantastic and is inspiring. And I don't know that many people, if we talk about their actual passion, I mean, their passion could be cupcakes, it could be green tea or whatever. How on earth do you manifest something like that? Is there, and I know this is a massive question, and it's years of work, but are there some guiding principles that have helped you? Discipline seems an obvious one.
Just like fighting and coaching are different, so coaching and business is different. So again, they're three separate skill areas. I was given some advice very early on, which was someone said, how many books do you have on your shelves? All right, how much of that is martial arts? And it was a lot. How much of it was business? It was like 1 or 2 books. Maybe that should be 50-50. I wasn't interested. Wasn't motivated. To me, it was about the Kung Fu. It wasn't about money. But then I realised something. You need to be able to sell your ideas to people. You need to be, if you want people to be healthy, you want people to practice, you have to sell it, because otherwise they're not going to they're bombarded with stuff all the time. They won't listen. You want to make an impact, you want to help people, you have to sell it. You have to sell your ideas, you have to sell your vision of what you're doing. So much as I really hated and resisted that side of it, I ended up doing some some training in sales and marketing and business, and then realised it wasn't really so different.
Right.
But it's a separate skill. You can be a great coach and not be able to run a school. I mean, running a school is a lot of areas. I would suggest people get a good, just like you want to learn to fight, you need a coach. You need a business coach. I'm not a business guru. My business is successful. I could push it more. I could be more if I wanted to go that way. I'm kind of content for the time being, spending most of my time training and studying, because I have enough. But there's people much more advanced than me. I mean, later this month I'm going to New York to the Martial Art Business Summit, which I go to every year. So that's a good resource I'd recommend. But yeah, just surround yourself with people. If you want to be a better fighter, you need to find someone better than you. If you want to, you want to get don't take dietary advice from someone that's overweight. Don't take fitness advice from someone that can't run a mile. Don't take business advice from someone that isn't running a successful business. So just like in the martial arts, find someone that's really embodied it, doing it really well, and then put away your preconceptions and basically shut up and listen and train like you do in your martial arts, at least for a few years.
So seek out some expert advice
in everything,
from in everything, anything and everything that you're looking to move forward in.
I don't think I'm necessarily an innovator. Everything I've done, there's examples of people doing it.
See, that's funny, because I would think of you as someone that's quite innovative.
Well, I've travelled to find people who can do stuff that I wanted to, and then learned off them. So rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, so from the coaching point of view, from the martial art point of view, I went to China and found my Sifu Dang Jiang who's like the fifth generation, and he's this sort of embodiment. So I want to learn that. And then there's been other areas, like in the mixed martial arts or in the weaponry or in various things. Like I've travelled to different countries and trained with different people, but and then I've tried to bring it back. But same thing for coaching, same thing for business, same thing for just life generally. You find if you can find mentors in all areas, it's so much easier than trying to figure it all out by yourself.
And trying to reinvent the wheel.
Absolutely, you can save yourself a lot of time.
Is there something to be so? You've educated yourself as well in these various fields, so you have to have some kind of will and determination to want to go and teach yourself how it's done and get in it.
You got to put the work in.
Very cool. I've been checking out who watches my the Scholar Warrior podcast. Surprisingly, it's more men.
Okay.
And they're typically younger. I feel that young men in the UK are kind of struggling a bit, and if you look at any kind of statistics, it looks that way in terms of.
It's shocking.
It's shocking. Yeah, we're talking about the number one killer for guys our age, suicide. The amount of people. Apparently, this millennial generation, is the most anxious and depressed generation.
Yeah.
You've also got a very successful son. What do you tell him? Do you tell him anything? I know that you've created a very good environment for him to thrive.
My son and my daughter are both.
And your daughter as well. She's like a Paralympian. My God.
Yeah. I think the main thing is I never pushed them into telling them what to do. I never made either of them train. I did teach them a lot when they were younger about critical thinking, how to think rather than what to think, how to find information. And really, they've blossomed. They've found their own way. I mean, it's not too much interfering. Really.
Right.
It has to be.
That's a lot of parenting.
Yeah, you have to.
Is to get out of the way a little bit.
Get out of the way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let them find themselves.
Hate to keep coming back to yin yang, but that's exactly the way I feel with my kids. They need structure, but they also need you to get the hell out of the way as well.
Yeah, both equally important.
Yeah. Okay, bonus round, which I know you love.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you 3 questions.
All right.
The last thing that you watched on TV, could be a movie or whatever, and you enjoyed.
The last thing I saw was the program Altered Carbon.
Okay, haven't heard of that.
That was good.
Okay, Altered Carbon.
Yeah, it's somewhere something like a sort of Blade Runner-esque thing with people that get re-uploaded. Their brains get re-uploaded in new bodies, and it's science fiction.
Oh god,
that was fun.
That sounds terrifying.
That was fun,
and not too far away. What's inspiring you at the moment?
My teacher.
Your teacher.
Still.
Okay.
Yeah. I just come back from a trip to China, and he's writing books, he's publishing books, but he's also evolving it in terms of he has his own method that he learned from his father and the old style, and now he's trying to create something which is relevant for today's culture. Again, he's talking a lot about longevity, about enjoying life, about how to use your Kung Fu to improve the quality of life, not just about fighting. But he's still got it. I mean, even the fighting side of it, I mean, he's still ferocious when he needs to be. But
he's still a bad boy.
He's still a bad boy, but he can absolutely turn it on and off when he needs to. He's found a really nice balance, and that inspires me.
And he's written 3 books.
Yeah, well, he has 3
unless
books.
you read Cantonese.
Yeah, I should say now that I don't read Chinese.
Yeah.
I speak with my Sifu, and so he explains it to me. But this was actually written by his father, but my Sifu's in the pictures.
Okay.
This is like the old traditional Hopgar style.
Right. Oh,
So
that's
the
cool.
Classical.
And is that the
Hopgar.
classical what they would be wearing as well?
Yeah.
He looks like a barbarian.
Exactly. And then he published his Tai Chi, which is his Yang style. This is the small frame Yang style. So he has a lot of background. His father practicing it in his, I think he's about 85 in this picture.
Right.
Doing the Yang style Tai Chi. And this is his mother at the age of 90 doing Hopgar Chi.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If you can't see, she's easily bending all over the place.
Yes, so that's really nice.
Yeah.
And this is my Sifu, it's like his small frame Yang style. And then so there's the kind of the tradition that's been passed to him in the Tai Chi and the Hopgar, but then this is his own thing, which he calls the new frame Hopgar, which is Minnoi Jam, needle wrapped in cotton, which is the softer side of the art. So and you talk about scholar warrior, that every movement he has produced a poem which is in metered structure in Chinese, where which is it goes in 7, so 7 7 7 7, which if you read it out in Cantonese, it has a certain flow to it, but it also as well as being a poetic name for each movement, also embodies the usage and the fighting application. So he's not lost that side of it, and all his fighting applications are practical. It's not like fantasy fu. It's all like really workable.
Fantasy fu.
Oh,
I've never even heard that. But that's great.
Yeah. So everything you can say, you can try it. With resistance or hitting the pads or using it in within an MMA context or a fight. But then you can practice it in another way as well, without changing the actual essence of it. So he's really about that, and that's really where he's coming from now.
He's still inspiring you.
He's still inspiring me.
Last one. What do you think about when you're driving in your car, if you have a car?
I do have a car.
Yeah.
Depends if it's a long drive or a short drive. I mean, if I'm on my way to a class, sometimes I'll be maybe thinking about what I'm teaching, or a technique or something I'm working on. But at the same time, I'm trying to be, for the most part, more mindful. So if I'm finding myself maybe tense or anxious or anything like that, I'll sometimes use the car, practice posture, mindful breathing. If I'm driving longer, I don't drive much in the week, but I do drive at weekends. If it's a long drive, I'll usually put a podcast on, so I'm not wasting the time. I'm learning something.
Scholar Warrior podcast.
Listen to it yesterday.
That's really kind.
Yes.
David, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Hey, before you go, I just want to say thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it. I'm trying to spread the idea of the Scholar Warrior concept, and we really appreciate you listening in. If you want to like us and subscribe to us, please go ahead, do that. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. If you want to hear older episodes, you can go to thescholarwarriorpodcast.com and you'll see older episodes there as well. Hope you enjoy those. So thanks again so much for listening and watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and see you next time.